You have 30 days to leave this house. I didn't realize the voice was mine until the wine glass in Daniel's hand slipped and shattered. On the hardwood floor, red liquid spread between our feet like spilled blood. Sophie froze, mid-bite, her fork trembling inches from her flawless lips. The Christmas tree lights blinked behind them, cheerful and terribly out of place. Daniel finally choked out. His eyes darted to Sophie, then back to me, as if hoping she'd explain what his own mother had just said. I didn't blink. You heard me. Sophie stood so fast, her chair screeched against the floor. Miss Evelyn, is this some kind of joke? Because it's not funny. I slid the folder onto the table. The thud of it landing cut through the room like a blade. Papers shifted inside, cold, sharp truths neither of them were prepared for. Daniel swallowed hard. Mom, what is that? That, I said evenly, is the reason you two will start packing tomorrow morning? Sophie let out a laugh, high nervous. The laugh of someone who suddenly senses the ground cracking beneath her heels. You're confused. That's what this is. Confusion. You get overwhelmed easily at your age. Sit down. My voice didn't rise, but something in it made her sit. Daniel looked pale. Mom, please. You're scaring me. Good, I whispered. You should be scared. A pine needle fell from the Christmas tree and landed near the broken glass. The room was so silent, we all heard it. For months, I had eaten in silence, swallowed comments, shrunk myself into hallways, into corners, into shadows. But not tonight. Tonight the words came out strong, each one a stone laid firmly back into the foundation they had chipped away. You made a decision, I said calmly, hands folded, without asking me. About my house. About my life. About where I should go. Sophie's lips curled. We were just trying to help you. Help, I leaned forward, finally feeling my heartbeat settle into something steady, powerful. Is that what you call going through my financial papers without permission? Is that what you call telling me which rooms I'm allowed to use in my own home? Sophie's face drained of color. Daniel's eyes snapped to her. What? Sophie. What is she talking about? Her mouth opened, then closed. I didn't wait. You two decided, I said, that after Christmas, I'd be moving into a senior facility. A nice one, your words. And you told me it's best if I don't make this difficult. Daniel winced. Sophie stiffened. But here's the thing, I continued. You forgot one crucial detail. My fingers tapped the folder softly once, twice. This house, I said, doesn't belong to you. I pushed the folder closer. It never did. Sophie reached for it with a shaky hand. Don't, I warned. She pulled back as if burned. Daniel's voice cracked. Mom, what is in there? I finally met his eyes. My son, my boy. The one I once carried on my hip through winters harsher than this. Your reality, I said softly, and the end of the fantasy you and Sophie built around my life. A car passed outside, headlights sweeping across the dining room wall. For a moment, the shadows looked like bars. But tonight, they weren't mine. They were theirs. Because in the next few minutes when they opened that folder, Daniel and Sophie would learn that the woman they thought they could quietly erase had been preparing for this confrontation. Long before they thought she'd ever fight back. Sophie's hand shook as she finally reached for the folder. Daniel grabbed her wrist midair. Don't touch it, he said softly. Softly but with fear. Real fear. It was the first honest emotion he'd shown all night. I watched them stare at the folder like it might explode. In a way, it already had. Mom, Daniel whispered, please tell me this is a misunderstanding. You'll find out soon enough, I replied. Go on, open it. No one moved. The Christmas clock on the wall chimed softly 1, 2, 3 notes each one, bouncing off the tension in the room. Finally, Daniel pulled the folder toward him. His fingers hesitated on the edge before flipping it open. The first page slid out. Property title sole owner, Evelyn Grace Hart. His jaw dropped. Sophie snatched the page from his hand. "This can't be real," she snapped. "This says you're the sole owner. But Daniel is your only child. He has rights." "He must have rights." "He doesn't," I said, leaning back in my chair. "This house was never his. And certainly never yours." Daniel blinked rapidly, lips parted. "Mom, why didn't you tell me?" "Because you never asked." His mouth moved but no sound came out. The second page slipped into view. Sophie grabbed it too quickly, almost tearing the corner. Her eyes scanned the words. "Bank transaction audit, unauthorized withdrawals highlighted." Her face drained of all color. Daniel reached for the page, but she spun it away from him. "It's nothing," she insisted. "This is all exaggerated." "Read it," I said. He took the paper gently, afraid of what he'd see. $300 here. $500 there. $1,200 over 3 weeks at restaurants I'd never been invited to. Clothing boutiques. Spa packages. Home decor bought without my consent. Line after line, in red. Daniel's throat bobbed as he swallowed. "Sophie, what is all this?" Her smile twitched. "Baby, don't listen to Hirsch, she's confused. At her age, stop using my age as your shield." My voice cracked through the room like thunder. Sophie flinched. Daniel looked between us as if trying to assemble a puzzle he didn't realize existed. "You said she approved things," he whispered. "She did." Sophie lied instantly. "She's just forgetting." "I forget nothing," I said. "What I remember is finding you in my filing cabinet. What I remember is you telling me, older women shouldn't worry about money. We'll handle it." Daniel's head snapped toward her again. "You said that." She hesitated. It was enough. I leaned forward, folding my hands. "Here's the truth, Daniel. I've been gathering evidence for weeks. Every word said to belittle me. Every change made without my permission. Every dollar moved without my consent." I tapped the folder. "It's all there." Sophie lunged for the folder like a wild animal. Daniel grabbed her arm, hard. "Sophie," he said, voice trembling, "did you use my mother's money?" She stared at him, eyes darting. Then finally she answered, "We needed it." The wrong answer. The devastating answer. The answer that shattered something inside Daniel that even I couldn't name. Silence fell heavy again. I picked up my glass of water, took a slow sip, and set it down with care. "Now," I said, "you understand why I said you have 30 days. Daniel buried his face in his hands. Sophie stared at me with hatred sharp enough to cut bone. But neither of them had seen the most important document yet. The one buried at the bottom of the folder. The one that wouldn't just evict them, but expose the one thing Sophie thought she'd buried forever. "Don't turn the page." Sophie's voice shot across the table like a whip. Daniel froze mid-motion, his thumb hovering over the next sheet inside the folder. His eyes lifted slowly to her face, confusion, fear, and something else flickering behind them. "Why?" he asked. Sophie swallowed hard. Too hard, a guilty swallow. A swallow of someone who realizes a secret is about to be pulled into the light. I said don't, she snapped, reaching for the folder. I placed my hand over it first. And Sophie jerked back, as if she'd touched a live wire. Daniel looked at her again, brows furrowing. "Sophie, what's in here?" Her voice cracked. "Just stop. You don't need to see that page. It's irrelevant." "Then let him see it," I said. "You stay out of this," she hissed. "No," Daniel said softly, dangerously. "Mom's right. If it's irrelevant, I should be able to see it." His fingers moved again. Sophie lunged. Too late. Daniel flipped the page. Silence detonated across the room. His eyes widened as he read the bold heading. Confidential report, financial vulnerability assessment. Subject, Sophie Lane. Filed by prior employer, Benton and Meyer, Accounting. Daniel whispered the words slowly, as if trying to make them mean something else. "Sophie, what is this?" Her lip trembled. "It's nothing. Old paperwork." A misunderstanding. But Daniel kept reading. The report was short, but brutal. Termination recommended due to repeated unauthorized access to client accounts. Pattern of manipulating elderly clients for financial gain. Advised to flag for future employers if requested. Daniel's face drained of all color. You were fired, he whispered. For stealing from old people. I didn't steal, Sophie shouted, slamming both hands on the table. They twisted everything. I just helped clients manage things better. They didn't understand financial systems. I was guiding them. The room felt colder than the December wind scraping the windows. I kept my voice quiet. You mean like you were guiding me? She spun toward me, teeth clenched. You old witch. Daniel stepped between us so fast, his chair toppled over. Enough. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. His voice was no longer the unsteady voice of a confused son. It was the voice of a man realizing he'd been manipulated far longer than he knew. He turned back to the page, reading again, slower, shaking. You told me your old boss was jealous. That you were unfairly targeted. He was jealous, Sophie insisted, voice cracking. Because I refused his advances. That's not what this says, he whispered. He lied. That's not what 3 other signatures say, he replied, holding up the page. Her breath hitched. My heart didn't leap with satisfaction, it sank. Because nothing is more heartbreaking than watching your child realize the person they trusted had been using them. Daniel sank into his chair like the floor had been pulled out beneath him. His hands trembled as he placed the report down. Sophie, did you target my mother? He asked quietly. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence answered for her. You used her money. He continued, voice shaking. You used her house. You pushed her into that small room. Sophie snapped, voice venomous. We needed control, Daniel. She wasn't going to hand it over unless we nudged her. She's older, stubborn, and stop. It was a whisper, but the air shook. Sophie's mouth snapped shut. Daniel lifted his eyes to mine, read, ashamed, undone. Mom, why didn't you tell me sooner? I felt my throat tighten. I did, I said softly. Just quietly. In ways you didn't want to hear. Sophie slammed her fist onto the table. None of this matters. You can't kick us out. Daniel has rights too. He's her son. Slowly, deliberately, I pointed to the deed with Daniel's trembling fingerprints on it. He doesn't, I said. Daniel didn't argue. He didn't defend her. He didn't defend himself. He just stared at that page. Like it was the first time he understood the difference between blood family and real loyalty. But he still hadn't seen the document beneath the report, the one with the attorneys' signatures, the one that didn't just confirm their eviction, but ensured that after 30 days, stepping foot into my house could become a criminal offense. Daniel's fingers hovered over the next page, but this time, Sophie didn't lunge. She didn't even breathe. She just stared at that sheet of paper as if she already knew what it contained, and knew she couldn't stop it. Daniel, she whispered urgently. Don't look, please. Listen to me instead. He ignored her. He pulled the page free. A thick legal header glared up at him. Letter of Legal Counsel, Elder Protection Attorney, regarding property rights, financial misconduct, and removal of unlawful occupants. Sophie made a strangled sound in her throat. Daniel read the first line out loud, voice hollow. Mrs. Evelyn Grace Hart is within full legal right to remove any individual from her property who engages in financial exploitation, coercion, or emotional abuse. He stopped. His entire body went still. Then he read on. In the event that such individuals refuse to leave voluntarily, Mrs. Hart may proceed with a protective order and notify law enforcement. Any attempt to re-enter the property after removal may constitute criminal trespassing. The breath left Sophie's lungs in a shaking gasp. Daniel's hands began to tremble. I didn't say a word. For once, I didn't need to. The paper was speaking for me. Sophie snatched it from him, scanning it desperately. This is bluffing. This isn't real. She wouldn't dare file anything. No judge is going to take the side of a forgetful old. Do not finish that sentence. My voice sliced through her words like glass. She shut her mouth instantly. Daniel lifted his head slowly, like a man waking from anesthesia. Mom, you talked to an attorney. Yes, I said simply. 3 weeks ago. But why? 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 The question stung more than Sophie's cruelty ever had. Because my own son genuinely didn't know. I leaned back, my hands folded. My voice steady, not loud, not shaking, just steady, like the truth finally found its place. Because you two made plans for my life without including me. I met Daniel's eyes. Because you moved me out of my bedroom. Because you told me which bathroom I was allowed to use. Because you took over the living room. Because you told me to stay in my room when you had guests. My voice sharpened, not angry, just clarified. Because you accessed my finances. Because you let Sophie speak to me like I was a burden. Because every week, there was less space for me in my own house. Less voice. Less dignity. Sophie scoffed. This is ridiculous. Daniel turned to her with a look I had never seen before. A look that froze her mid-sentence. Did you use her money? He asked again, quietly. Daniel, please baby, listen. Did you use my mother's money? The crack in his voice was louder than any shout. Sophie recoiled. Her silence was the answer. Daniel pressed his hands against his face. Oh God, what have I done? Now his guilt surfaced, not demanded, not forced, real, raw, undeniable. Good. It meant he was finally waking up. Sophie inhaled sharply. You can't evict us. You can't. We're your family. No, I said gently, but firmly. Family protects each other. Family respects each other. Family does not steal or control. Family does not humiliate. I tapped the last line of the attorney's letter with a single finger. Family does not force a grandmother to go into a facility so they can take her house. The words landed like a dropped brick. Sophie's face twisted. You can't throw us out. We have nothing. We'll be on the street. That, I said calmly, is no longer my responsibility. Daniel looked up, broken. Mom, what happens now? I took a slow breath. Now, I said, you have 30 days. After that, if either of you steps inside this house. I nodded toward the signature at the bottom of the letter. The police will handle it. Sophie's chair screeched violently as she stood. You'll regret this, she spat. An old woman alone. No one will take care of you. No one will love you. You think you're strong, but you're just... But I didn't let her finish. For the first time in months, I said softly, I finally feel strong. Because what neither of them knew not yet was that I wasn't just evicting them. I had already made a backup plan for myself. A plan they would never see coming. I'm not going anywhere, Sophie hissed. You think you can manage this big house alone. You think you can handle bills, repairs, everything. You won't last a month without us. I smiled. A small, quiet smile that made her step back. Who said I'll be here alone? Daniel's head snapped up. Mom, what do you mean? Sophie stiffened. What is she talking about? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I rose from my chair. Slowly, steadily, like a woman who hadn't stood tall in months but suddenly remembered how. Both of them watched me carefully. As if seeing a stranger, someone they had underestimated. So deeply that they failed to notice she was rebuilding herself right under their noses. You too planned my future, I said, walking toward the fireplace. You planned my room, my schedule, my meals. You planned my finances. I turned, but while you planned my life, I planned my freedom. Sophie scoffed. Freedom. You're 70, you need help. I found help, I interrupted. Just not the kind you expected. Daniel blinked. Mom, what does that mean? It means, I said, placing a hand on the mantel, that 3 weeks ago, after meeting with the attorney, I also met with someone else. Who? Daniel whispered. You'll find out soon enough. I let the suspense sit like frost on the windows. But I can tell you this, I will never be alone again, unless I choose to be. Sophie crossed her arms. You're bluffing. I tilted my head. Am I? Behind them, the Christmas tree lights blinked softly green-red, gold reflecting in the glass window where their faint silhouettes stood like trapped ghosts. I walked back to the table and lifted an envelope tucked beneath the attorney's letter. Sophie's eyes widened, as if the paper itself threatened her. Daniel swallowed. Mom, what is that? I handed it to him. He opened it with trembling fingers. His eyes scanned the page and widened. Lease Agreement Unit 3B. Tenant, Evelyn Grace Hart. Deposit paid in full. Move-in date, January 2nd. Daniel gasped. Mom, you rented an apartment. Sophie staggered back as if slapped. You what? Yes, I said simply. They stared at me as though I had pulled a rabbit from a hat. A small, warm pride settled in my chest. They had spent so long convincing me I was weak that the sight of their shock felt like reclaiming air. I hadn't breathed in months. You were planning to put me in a home, I said. So I started looking for a home I'd actually want. Daniel's voice cracked. Why didn't you tell me? Because you weren't listening, I replied. To anything. Sophie pointed at the lease with a shaking finger. You can't afford that. You don't have the money. I raised an eyebrow. I have more money than you think. Especially now that someone won't be draining my accounts anymore. Her face flushed violently. Daniel turned to her, betrayal written across his features. Sophie, did you seriously think you could control everything? She shook with fury. We were helping her. She can't live alone. She's frail. I am not frail, I said firmly. I am 70, not broken. They both fell silent. I breathed in deeply, letting the pine scent mix with the cold December air sneaking under the window pane. I'll move into my apartment on January 2nd, I said. You two will move out of here by January 24th. After that, if you return without permission. I tapped the attorney's letter. The law will speak for me. Daniel covered his mouth, eyes glistening. Mom, I didn't know You didn't want to know, I said gently. That's different. The truth stung, but truth always does. And yet, as powerful as that moment felt, none of us knew what was coming next. Because the person I'd asked to pick me up on January 2nd, the one who helped me find that apartment, was someone who would change everything in this story. Especially for Daniel. Who's helping you move? Daniel's voice cracked as he asked it, a mix of fear, confusion, and something darker. Jealousy. Sophie snapped her head toward him. Why does that matter? She's bluffing. She doesn't know anyone. She barely leaves the house. I held her gaze until she looked away. It matters, Daniel insisted. Mom, who's helping you? Who did you talk to? For a moment, I didn't answer. I simply reached into the folder, pulled out a small white business card, and placed it gently, very gently on the table. Both of them leaned forward, and both of them froze when they read the name. Rosa Martinez, Senior Relocation Specialist and Independent Advocate. Sophie's mouth dropped open. Daniel blinked, stunned. Rosa, from next door. Yes, I said calmly. Sophie let out an ugly laugh. Oh, please. That old woman. That's your brilliant plan. She's nobody. She's someone who noticed I was being mistreated, I replied, which means she's already more than you. Sophie's jaw clenched. Daniel's forehead creased, confusion twisting through his features like a storm. Mom, you told Rosa about all this. About us. Yes. He swallowed. Why her? Why not me? Because, I said softly. She listened. The word struck him harder than any slap could. He sank into his chair as I continued. She saw me stopped from using my own living room. She saw me carrying groceries, alone because you two were always too busy. She saw me sitting outside in the cold with my cousin because Sophie didn't want the living room messed up. She saw me fading. While you looked away, Daniel pinched the bridge of his nose, fighting the sting in his eyes. I didn't know it was that bad. You didn't want to know. The silence between us lay heavy and honest. Finally, Sophie slammed her hands on the table. This is ridiculous. So what, this Rosa woman convinced you to betray your own family? No, I said. She reminded me that being family doesn't give anyone permission to treat me like furniture. Daniel winced. Sophie scoffed. You're dramatic. You're old. You're overreacting. I leaned forward. Say that again. She opened her mouth. But Daniel grabbed her wrist. Stop talking, he whispered. His voice shook with something powerful. A realization. Sophie jerked her arm away. You're taking her side? For the first time, he said, I'm finally hearing her. His words landed like a blow on Sophie, yes, but also on himself, because he knew they were true. Sophie pointed accusingly at me. This old woman is manipulating you. She's making you feel guilty so she can push us out. I breathed in slowly, deep, steady, and then I said the one sentence Sophie had never expected. Rosa and I already arranged everything. The movers are booked. The deposit is paid. The utilities are set up. I am leaving on January 2nd and nothing you say will change that. Daniel stared at me, stunned. Mom, you've really been planning this? Yes, I said. Because you planned my disappearance. I just refused to disappear. Sophie's voice rose to a shriek. This is insane. You need us. Whether you admit it or not, you need us. No, I whispered. I need peace. And dignity. And freedom. Things I no longer had with you here. Sophie took a step toward me, face twisted with rage. You'll regret this. Maybe, I said. But regret is better than living in fear of my own house. Daniel finally spoke again so quietly, it almost broke me. Mom, I didn't know you were unhappy. I know, I replied. But you should have. His face crumpled, but the hardest truth was still waiting, because the next document in that folder wasn't about them at all. It was about me and a secret I had kept for 40 years. A secret that would change Daniel's view of everything. He thought he knew about his mother. Mom, what is that? Daniel pointed to the last sealed envelope in the folder, the only page I hadn't let them see yet. Sophie narrowed her eyes. Another trick. Another stunt to make us look bad. But Daniel wasn't looking at her. He was looking at me, at my hands. At the way they trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what that envelope held. I'm not sure you're ready, I said quietly. Daniel's breath hitched. Why would you say that? Because, I whispered, this isn't about the house, or money, or even Sophie. Sophie scoffed. Of course it's not about me. You're just trying to guilt him. Shut up, Daniel snapped. He didn't yell. He didn't shake. He just said it calm, cold, final. Sophie flinched and sank into her chair, stunned. Daniel leaned forward. Mom, what's in that envelope? I held it in both hands, staring at the flap sealed decades ago. Something I never thought I'd have to show you. Is it legal papers? He asked. About the estate. About Dad. A sharp ache bloomed in my chest at the mention of his father. No, I said softly. Not about that. Daniel swallowed. Then what? I closed my eyes for a moment and saw it all again. A hospital room. A metal crib. A nurse telling me he may not survive the night. My breath trembled. When I opened my eyes, both of them were watching me, Daniel, with confusion and fear. and Sophie with irritation that something wasn't about her. I placed the envelope on the table. Very gently. He doesn't know, I murmured to myself. Doesn't know what? Daniel whispered. I met his eyes. My son's eyes. The same eyes that once stared up at me from a crib too small for all. The tubes he was connected to. Daniel, I said, my voice barely holding steady. When you were a baby just 2 months old you almost died. His face went blank. What? He whispered. You weren't expected to survive, I continued. Your lungs collapsed. Your heart stopped twice. The doctors told me to prepare for the worst. He stared at me as though the ground beneath him had vanished. Sophie rolled her eyes. Oh please, Evelina, another dramatic. This isn't for you, I said without even looking at her. My voice was steady steel. Stay quiet. She sank back, stunned, silent. Daniel's lips parted. Mom. Why did you never tell me? Because I didn't want your childhood to be defined by fear, I said. I wanted you to grow, to laugh, to feel strong, not fragile. He blinked rapidly, eyes glistening. But what's in the envelope? I reached forward and slid it toward him. Inside was a newspaper clipping, a medical report, a photograph of my 22-year-old self holding a tiny baby connected to tubes, and a letter. Daniel lifted it with trembling fingers. It's from your father, I said quietly. Written the night the doctors said you wouldn't make it. He wrote it for you. In case you didn't live, and in case he never forgave himself for not protecting you. Daniel's breath shattered. Sophie stared, speechless for once. He left it for you, I whispered, and begged me to give it to you when you were old enough to understand how precious your life was, how close we came to losing you, and how much love built this house, this family, this life. Daniel touched the envelope as though it might break. Why are you showing me this now? He choked. Because, I whispered, you forgot how much your life cost us. How hard we fought for you. How much love raised you. And when you forgot that, you forgot, me, He closed his eyes, tears falling silently. Sophie shifted uncomfortably, like a spotlight was finally turning on her. I placed my hand beside his clothes, but not touching. Daniel, you were never a burden. Not even when doctors said you'd never walk or speak. Not even when we feared the worst. You were worth every sacrifice. Every sleepless night. Every breath I fought for. His shoulders shook. But this house, this life, it didn't come from nothing, I continued. It came from love. From pain. From survival. And when you let Sophie treat me like an obstacle, you forgot the price your father and I paid to keep you alive. Daniel covered his face. Sophie stared, instantly jealous that the world no longer revolved around her. But this revelation wasn't meant to break Daniel, it was meant to wake him. And what he said next would determine whether he left this house as my son, or as a stranger. Mom. Daniel lowered the letter slowly. His hands trembling so violently, the page fluttered like a wounded bird. After everything you've done for me, after everything Dad wrote, how could I have treated you this way? He wasn't looking at me. He wasn't even looking at Sophie. He was staring straight into the empty space between us. The space where a lifetime of love and promises had once lived. Daniel, I said gently, you're not the only one who forgot. His eyes lifted, wet, red, broken. How can you say that? Because I forgot to, I whispered. I forgot that mothers aren't meant to disappear so their children can have comfort. I forgot that sacrifice without boundaries becomes self-erasing. I forgot that love isn't permission. He flinched as though each word landed on skin already bruised. Sophie scoffed loudly, snapping the fragile moment in half. Oh, for God's sake, Daniel, don't fall for this emotional performance. She's manipulating you. Daniel turned his head slowly. Very slowly. Sophie, he said, voice shaking but dangerously calm, stop talking. She gaped at him. Excuse me. Just stop, he repeated. No, you stop. Sophie shot back, rising to her feet. You're buying into her old lady guilt trip. She's trying to turn you against me. He stood too. Not fast. Not aggressive. Just deliberate. Sophie, he said in a low voice. That letter, my father wrote it when he thought I was dying. So what? She snapped. Who cares? That's ancient history. Daniel's face changed. Not softened. Not hardened. It emptied. You don't talk about my father, he said quietly. Oh my God, Daniel, enough. She threw her hands up. This whole thing is absurd. You're letting this woman. That woman, he said, pointing at me, is the reason I'm alive. Sophie blinked. He kept going. She fought doctors. She slept on hospital floors. She worked until her fingers bled. She saved every penny for my future. She built this home, and I... His voice cracked. Let you turn her into a burden. You didn't let me do anything. Sophie shouted. She's dramatic. She's old. She's in the way. She needs structure. No, Daniel whispered. You needed control. She froze. You controlled the rooms. You controlled the finances. You controlled how we spoke to her. You controlled the narrative so well. I didn't even realize I'd stopped seeing my own mother. Sophie's face twisted. I did it because I love you. No, Daniel said sadly. You did it because you saw an opportunity. She slapped him. The sound exploded through the dining room like a firecracker. Daniel didn't move. He didn't yell. He didn't even touch his cheek. He just breathed out. Slowly. Then he turned to me. Mom, he whispered, I need... His voice cracked. I need to ask something. And I'm scared of the answer. I braced myself. Ask. He swallowed hard. After everything. After what I allowed. After how blind I was. Do you still want me in your life? The room went silent. Dead silent. Even Sophie stopped breathing. Daniel stood in front of Minot as a son demanding. Not as a man defending, but as a child again. Terrified of losing the only person who had ever fought for him. He wasn't asking about the house, or the eviction, or the legal papers. He was asking about something far more fragile, whether a mother's love could survive a son's neglect. I looked at him, truly looked at him. The man he became. The boy he once was. The child I almost lost. The child I lost again this time, not to illness, but to influence and indifference. Sophie watched anxiously, hoping for a weakness to exploit. But I wasn't choosing between them. I was choosing myself. Daniel, I said softly, whether you stay in my life depends on one thing. His breath caught. Anything. Tell me. Respect, I said. If you cannot give me that, then you will leave this house as a stranger. His tears fell instantly. Sophie's eyes widened with panic, not because Daniel was hurting, but because she felt him slipping away. But before Daniel could respond, Sophie did something none of us expected. Something so explosive, so revealing, that it shattered the last illusion holding their relationship together. You want respect, Sophie spat, stepping between Daniel and me. Her eyes were wild, now cornered, exposed, desperate. How about respecting the fact that we're the ones taking care of you? Feeding you, paying the bills. Daniel blinked. Sophie, you know we didn't pay. Oh, shut up, she snapped, whipping toward him. For months I've been carrying this household on my back, while she jabbed a finger at me. Sits around acting like some poor, helpless saint. Daniel's jaw tightened. Sophie, stop. No. You want the truth. She screamed, voice cracking. Fine, here's the truth. Daniel, your mother is a burden. The word pierced the room like shattered glass. Even Sophie seemed startled by the force of it. But she kept going. She slows us down. She interrupts everything. She's needy, emotional, forgetful, and constantly in the way. We can't build our life because she's already taken over everything. This house, the money, you... Daniel stepped back as if the wind had been punched out of him. Sophie? His voice was barely audible. Is that really how you see her? No, she snapped. That's how anyone would see her. Anyone with sense. I exhaled quietly. Finally, the truth she'd been hiding behind sweet smiles and soft tones was out. Ugly, unfiltered, undeniable. Daniel stared at her in disbelief. You never said any of that. Of course I didn't, she barked. If I had, you would have gotten emotional and dramatic and rushed to defend her. So you manipulated me instead, he whispered. She threw her hands up. I guided you. Because without me, you're clueless. You're soft. You're easily influenced. You don't know how to stand up for yourself. And she pointed sharply at me. Takes advantage of that. Daniel froze. Sophie's breath heaved, her face red with fury, but her eyes were calculating. She realized too late what she had admitted. Daniel's voice went hollow. Did you ever love me? She blinked. What? It's a simple question, Sophie. His hands shook, but his voice did not. Did you love me, or did you love the comfort that came with me? She opened her mouth, closed it, then forced out a brittle laugh. Oh, don't be stupid, Daniel. Love doesn't matter. Stability does. Silence. Heavy, devastating silence. Daniel stared at her as though seeing her clearly for the first time. You didn't love me, he whispered. You loved what you could take from me. Sophie rolled her eyes. Oh, grow up. Everyone takes what they need from someone. No, Daniel said softly. Not everyone. You're pathetic, Sophie snapped. You get one emotional story from your mother and suddenly I'm the villain. Really? Daniel lifted the letter from his father. This, he said, voice cracking, is not a story. It's my life. The life my parents fought for. Crying on hospital floors is not emotional manipulation. Working double shifts is not manipulation. Giving up everything to raise a child alone is not manipulation. He stepped back from her. You humiliated my mother in her own home. You used her money. You mistreated her. And he swallowed hard. I let you. Sophie's eyes widened. Daniel, you're not seriously choosing her over me? He turned slowly, painfully, toward me. I'm choosing the person who actually loved me. Sophie went rigid. If you walk away right now, I'm done. We're done. Daniel didn't blink. We were done the moment you called her a burden. Sophie sputtered. Daniel. No, he said, shaking his head. This conversation is over. Her rage exploded. You'll regret this. You'll regret choosing her. You'll crawl back when you realize you can't survive without me. Daniel didn't even look at her. For the first time, he walked toward me. Not as a guilty man, not as a confused son, but as someone finally seeing truth. He opened his mouth to speak. But before he could, boom, the front door slammed. Sophie was gone. Gone with a fury that shook the walls, leaving behind the echo of her final threat. You'll both regret this. Daniel stood frozen, chest heaving. Slowly, he turned back to me. Mom, he whispered, voice trembling. I am so sorry. For everything. For what she did. For what I did. For not seeing you. For forgetting who you are. He sank to his knees in front of me. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I'm begging for a chance to earn it. His tears hit the floor. And for the first time in years, he looked like the little boy I once held against my heart. But forgiveness is never simple. And before I could answer, the doorbell rang, and the person standing outside would push this story into a direction none of us saw coming. Ding! The sound sliced through the house like a blade. Daniel froze mid-breath, still kneeling at my feet. Tears clung to his lashes. His apology trembled in the air between us and finished unanswered. Ding! Again. Urgent, insistent. Daniel wiped his face quickly and stood. Mom, should I get that? Before I could answer, The bell rang a third time. Whoever was outside wasn't leaving. I felt something shift in my chest, a strange mixture of dread and intuition. Because I knew that knock, that rhythm, that insistence. "Let me," I whispered, placing a hand on Daniel's arm. He nodded and stepped aside. As I walked toward the front door, snowflakes swirled against the glass, the December wind howling like a warning. The house seemed to hold its breath. I opened the door, and there she stood, Rosa, her coat dusted with snow, cheeks flushed, eyes sharp with urgency. But she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a man, a broad, gray-haired man with a leather satchel slung over his shoulder. Someone I hadn't seen in ** 40 years, **. My breath caught. "Evelyn," Rosa said, gently taking my hand. "We need to talk. Now." Daniel appeared beside me, his face tightening when he saw Rosa. "Is everything okay? Did something happen?" Rosa squeezed my hand, then looked at him with a seriousness that made even Daniel step back. "It's time," she said quietly. "Your mother didn't plan to reveal this yet. But after everything that happened tonight, she deserves peace." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" I swallowed hard. My past, the part I'd kept buried deeper than anything else, was standing on my doorstep, bringing the winter air with him. The man behind Rosa stepped forward slightly. He took off his hat. His voice, low, warm, familiar, broke through decades. "Hello, Evelyn." My heart stuttered. Daniel blinked. "Mom, who is he?" I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Rosa stepped in. "This is ** Samuel Turner **, she said. Her voice was soft but steady. "And before you say anything, Daniel, yes, he is exactly who you think he might be." Daniel's face drained of color. "No," he whispered. "Are you saying?" Samuel looked at him with a grief that had aged him. "I've wanted to meet you for a long time, Daniel." Daniel stumbled back, shaking his head. "Mom, what is he talking about? Who is this man?" My throat tightened. My pulse hammered. Rosa placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Your mother never told you," she said gently, "because she didn't want you growing up with confusion, or resentment, or divided loyalty." Samuel's eyes locked onto mine, soft, aching, apologetic. "Evelyn," he said quietly, "may I please come in?" Daniel stared at me, begging for truth. "Mom, what is happening right now?" The cold wind curled around our ankles. The Christmas lights flickered behind us, and in that moment, I felt 40 years of silence pressing against my ribs, demanding to be released. I inhaled slowly. "Daniel," my voice trembled, "there are things about your childhood, about my life, that I never told you. Things I hid to protect you. Things that hurt too much to reopen." His eyes widened. "Mom, please, just tell me." I stepped aside. "Come in, Samuel." Daniel's breath hitched. He whispered, horrified, hopeful, confused. "Mom, is he my father?" The question cracked the air like lightning. Rosa exhaled. Samuel closed his eyes. Daniel swayed as though the ground shifted beneath him. And I finally felt the weight of 40 years ready to break open. But the truth wasn't simple. Because Samuel wasn't the man Daniel thought he was, and the story of who he actually was would change everything Daniel believed about his family, his past, and himself. "Yes," I whispered. But then the word caught in my throat. Samuel stepped inside slowly, the way someone approaches a wounded animal, respectful, aware of decades of unspoken pain. Daniel stared at him as if staring into a mirror with 40 years of delay. Same eyes, same jawline, same quiet way of holding emotion behind the teeth. "Mom," Daniel breathed, "is he my—" "No," I said suddenly. Daniel jolted. Samuel lowered his head, and Rosa placed a steadying hand on my back. "No," I repeated, voice shaking. "He is not your father." Daniel's confusion slammed back harder than the first shock. Then, who is he? Why is he here? Why does he look? Why does he? Because, I whispered, your father is gone. And Samuel is the man who should have been told the truth 40 years ago. Daniel blinked, lost. Rosa spoke gently. Daniel, your mother didn't bring him here to replace your father. He was part of a story that was cut short before you were born. Samuel stepped forward. Let me explain. No, Daniel snapped. I want to hear it from her. His voice cracked. I nodded. My past. My secret. My burden. All of it rose to the surface. When I was 22, I began, before I met your father. I was engaged. Daniel's mouth parted. Samuel and I were young, poor, in love. Planning a small wedding behind the church. We thought life would be simple. Samuel's eyes glistened. But then, I continued. His family moved suddenly. Out of state. They left within days. No phone, no address. No way to reach him. Daniel frowned. So you broke up? No, Samuel whispered. We were torn apart. My breath trembled as I continued. I wrote letters every week for a year. Dozens of them. I begged for any reply. None came. Daniel's eyes snapped to Samuel. Why didn't you answer? Samuel swallowed hard. I never saw a single letter. What? Daniel whispered. My mother didn't want me marrying young, Samuel said with raw regret. She intercepted every letter. She lied. She told me Evelyn moved on, found someone else, didn't want the baby. Daniel stiffened. The baby. I closed my eyes. Yes, I was pregnant. Daniel went still. Completely still. You were pregnant. With his child? He whispered, stunned. Yes. He looked at me like the floor had disappeared under him. But I wasn't born yet. I wasn't. No, Daniel, I said softly, placing a trembling hand on his arm. You weren't that baby. Silence. Cold. Thick. Crushing. Mom, he whispered. What happened to the baby? My lips shook. The baby didn't make it, I said. I lost her in the 7th month. A girl. Daniel's breath hitched painfully. He stepped back, tears racing down his face. I never knew, he whispered. You were never meant to carry that grief, I said. It was a loss that nearly destroyed me. And when I met your father months later, he saved me. He helped me live again. Daniel pressed a hand over his mouth, overwhelmed. Samuel spoke softly. I didn't learn the truth until last year after my mother passed. I found your letters. All of them, tied with ribbon in a box, she hid. My knees nearly buckled, remembering those nights I cried myself to sleep, believing Samuel abandoned me. She kept us apart, Samuel said, voice breaking, and she kept me from knowing our child existed and was lost. Daniel stared between us, heartbroken, shaken, but listening. Why are you here? He whispered. Samuel inhaled shakily. Rosa told me what you're going through. She told me your mother was being mistreated, cornered, silenced. Again. Daniel looked down. Ashamed, and I couldn't let history repeat itself, Samuel continued. I couldn't let her suffer in silence the way she did at 22. Not again. Not ever. I wiped a tear that escaped. I asked Rosa to bring him tonight, I said. Because I wanted someone who knew my strength before life buried it, to witness me reclaim it. Daniel's eyes flooded. Mom, why didn't you ever tell me? Because, I whispered, your father was the love who stayed. And I wanted your story to begin with, stability not loss. Samuel stepped closer, but not too close. Daniel, I am not here to take your father's place. No one ever could. Daniel nodded weakly. But I am asterisk here, Samuel said, to tell you something your mother won't say. Daniel looked up. She deserves more than you've given her. Daniel broke. Tears fell freely. He sank onto the couch, sobbing into his palms. I sat beside him. Daniel, I said gently, your past isn't your fault. But your choices are. And now, You must choose the man you want to be. He lifted his head slowly, painfully, and whispered the hardest question of all. Asterisk, asterisk, Mom. Do you still believe in me? The room froze. Rosa held her breath. Samuel lowered his eyes, and I felt every year of motherhood swell inside me. But before I could answer, a sound shattered the fragile silence. Sophie was back, and she hadn't come alone. Bam, bam, bam. The pounding on the door exploded through the house before I could answer Daniel's question. Rosa flinched. Samuel stepped forward protectively, and Daniel's head snapped up, eyes wide with dread. I felt it instantly. That rhythm. That anger. That entitlement. Sophie. Daniel whispered, "No. No, she wouldn't." A voice sliced through the door. "Open this door, Evelyn. Open it right now." Rosa's eyebrows shot up. Well, that didn't take long. I inhaled slowly. The moment of fragile healing evaporated like mist. Bam, bam, bam. "I know you're in there. Both of you." Samuel's eyes narrowed at her tone. "Is this how she speaks to you?" Daniel covered his face. "I told her to leave. I told her we were done." Rosa snorted. "Narcissists don't leave. They regroup." Another blow hit the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Then her voice turned shrill, venomous. "Daniel, if you don't open this door, I swear I will." I stepped forward and opened it myself. Sophie stumbled inside, her eyes blazing with fury and mascara streaked down her cheeks. Behind her stood two people, her brother large, muscular, red-faced, and a woman I assumed was her friend recording on her phone. Sophie's eyes found me first. "You think you can embarrass me? Kick me out? Turn my fiancé against me? You think you're some kind of saint?" Daniel stiffened. "Sophie, stop. You can't just—" "Oh, shut up, Daniel," she snapped. "You're pathetic. Crying like a child in front of strangers. Seriously." Samuel stepped forward calmly, but with the authority of a storm. "Lower your voice," he said. Sophie blinked, startled by the interruption. "And who the hell are you asterisk?" Rosa smirked. "Her past. And your future problem." Daniel rubbed his forehead. "Sophie, please. Just go home." "This isn't the time." She shoved at his chest. "No, I am not going anywhere until this old woman apologizes." I tilted my head. "Apologizes? For what exactly?" "For ruining my life," she screamed. "For evicting us? For turning Daniel against me? For lying? For manipulating everyone?" Rosa clicked her tongue. Projection at its finest. Sophie wheeled on her. "Stay out of this, Grandma." Rosa folded her arms. "Try me." Her brother stepped forward, puffing out his chest. "Look, lady, you can't just kick out my sister without cause. She has rights." Samuel gave him a long, measured look. "The only right she has," he said softly, "is the right to leave peacefully." Sophie's face reddened. "This house should be ours. Daniel and I were going to build a future here." Daniel inhaled sharply. "You never cared about our future. You cared about the house." Her lips curled. "So what if I did? It's a beautiful house. People work their whole lives to get something like this. And I wasn't about to let some old, lonely widow stand in the way." The words sliced through the room. Samuel's jaw clenched. Rosa sucked in a sharp breath. Daniel looked physically ill. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't move. I simply said, "You proved my decision right." Sophie's eyes flared with rage. "I won't be thrown out like trash." "You already threw yourself out," Rosa muttered. Sophie pointed at Daniel. "And you, Daniel, you will regret choosing her over me." Daniel stared at her heartbroken, disgusted, clear for the first time. "I didn't choose her over you," he said quietly. "I chose myself." Sophie blinked, confused. "What?" "I chose a life without cruelty," he continued. "I chose a life without manipulation. I chose a life where my mother isn't abused. I chose to stop letting you control me." Sophie's face twisted, then cracked into desperate disbelief. You can't do this, Daniel, she whispered. You love me. Daniel shook his head slowly. No, I loved the version of you I thought you were. Sophie staggered back. Her brother grabbed her elbow. Come on, let's go. No, she screamed, ripping free. I'm not leaving without him. Daniel took a step back. Behind me. Sophie, he said quietly, it's over. The words shattered her. She screamed a raw guttural sound and lunged toward him. But Samuel stepped between them like an immovable wall. That's enough, he said. She froze more in shock than fear. Rosa pulled out her phone. Sophie, she said sweetly. You might want to leave now before this becomes a police matter. Sophie looked around at the witnesses, at the evidence, at the truth closing around her like a fist. Her breath came fast and broken. This isn't over, she whispered. Then she turned and stormed out. Her brother and friend followed, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. Silence. The kind that vibrates. Then Daniel collapsed onto the nearest chair. Mom, he whispered, shattered. I never knew she was capable of that. I placed a hand on his shoulder. You didn't know, I said softly. But now you do. He looked up at me through tears. Mom, you never answered my question. I paused. He swallowed. Do you still believe in me? And before I could speak, someone else answered first. A voice none of us expected. A voice from the hallway. I do. The voice floated softly from the hallway, steady, certain, warm. All of us turned. Samuel stood there, one hand resting on the doorframe, watching Daniel with the kind of quiet conviction men rarely show. Rosa stepped beside him, her expression gentle but firm. Daniel blinked. What? What did you say? Samuel stepped forward, stopping just beside Manat in front. Not behind, but asterisk with asterisk me. I said, he repeated, I believe in you. Daniel's throat tightened. But why? He asked, broken. You don't even know me. Samuel's smile was tender. I know the woman who raised you. Silence. Powerful, soft, transformative, he continued, voice low and resolute. And any man raised by a woman like Evelyn, by a woman who loved fiercely, sacrificed quietly, and survived more than most people ever will, that man is worth believing in. Daniel's eyes overflowed. I felt my breath catch. Rosa placed a hand on his shoulder. You made mistakes. So did she. So did we all. But mistakes aren't identity. They're lessons. Daniel covered his face, crying, silently exhausted, humbled, freed from the fog he'd lived in for months. I stepped toward him. The woman I had been, the one who whispered her pain into pillows, who ate dinner alone in her own home, who tiptoed to avoid disturbing her son and his fiancée, was gone. The woman standing here now had returned to her rightful place. Daniel, I said gently, look at me. He lifted his head slowly. And in his eyes, for the first time in years, was the boy who used to run to me after nightmares. The boy who trusted my voice more than his own heartbeat. I believe in who you can be, I whispered, but only if you choose respect, humility, and accountability. Love without responsibility isn't love, it's convenience. He nodded, trembling. I know, he whispered. And I want to change. Not for Sophie, not for anyone else, but for you, and for myself. Rosa smiled softly. That's the beginning of becoming a man, not just an adult. Daniel looked down, then up again. Mom, he said, I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm asking for a chance to earn it. I cupped his cheek. You'll earn it, I said. Not by perfection, but by presence. He leaned into my hand like he used to as a child, and my heart broke and healed at the same time. But there was one final truth he needed. Daniel, I said softly, I will always love you, but I will not sacrifice my dignity again to keep you close. If you want to stay in my life, you must stand beside me, not above me. He nodded fiercely. I understand. Samuel cleared his throat gently. Well, now that the storm has passed, I think this house could use some new energy. Rosa grinned. And a fresh pot of coffee. Daniel actually laughed, a real warm laugh, weak but genuine. Mom, he said shyly, can I stay tonight? Just to talk, to understand you again, to hear about Dad, maybe even meet Samuel properly. My chest filled with something I thought I'd lost forever. Of course, I whispered. We moved into the living room. The living room that once felt like forbidden territory, and for the first time in months, it felt like home again. Rosa brewed the coffee. Samuel lit the fireplace. Daniel grabbed blankets like he used to during family movie nights. And I sat in my old armchair, my throne, my anchor, and watched my life stitch itself into a new, stronger pattern. As we talked into the late hours, about truth, forgiveness, boundaries, about my lost baby, my past love, my late husband, about family rebuilt brick by brick, I realized something. I hadn't just reclaimed my house. I had reclaimed myself, my dignity, my voice, my worth, my future. At 70, I wasn't ending a chapter. I was finally living the one I deserved. Daniel fell asleep on the couch, exhausted but peaceful, and for the first time in years, I tucked a blanket around him, just like I used to. Samuel watched with a soft smile. You raised him well, he murmured. I nodded, and now, it's his turn to rise. As the fire crackled, Rosa squeezed my hand. Well, Evelyn, she whispered, you did it. You saved yourself. I smiled, letting warmth seep into my bones. No, I said. I returned to myself. Because, in the end, love without respect is a wound. Respect without love is a void. But dignity is the foundation on which every true family must stand. That night, I whispered a silent promise to myself. Never again will I shrink to make others comfortable. Never again will I trade my peace for permission. And never again will I forget who I am. I am Evelyn Grace Hart. I am enough.